Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Philip J. Pierre.
Honorable members, when the House last rose, the question before it was that the Appropriation 2017-2018 bill be read a second time. At the point, as well, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition was on his feet. And on the issue of whether the document referred to by the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, can be made a document of the House, my ruling is based on Erskine May Parliamentary Practice 24th edition, latest edition, which is 2011, which is an authority on parliamentary procedures. I will read on rules governing the contents of speeches, citing documents not before the House, page 447, and I ask honorable members to bear with me because copies will be made available to you. So I'm reading from page 447, and I quote, "There is no rule to prevent members not connected with the government from citing documents in their possession, both public and private, which are not before the House, even though the House will not be able to form a correct judgment from partial extracts." At this juncture, I wish to say the Honorable Leader of the Opposition can lay his documents. However, the document, we have to understand that we live in a digital age, and the document being on the internet would be a public document. That being said, we cannot know one, that does not mean that this attests to the veracity of the document. But the document will be laid and it will be accepted. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, you are now due to finish at 7:15. Please proceed. No, sorry. 7:30, sorry. 7:30. At 7:30. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, during...
my apologies, sir. The documents also, we're just making the last set of the second batch of the documents. As I understand it, there are 2 sets of documents referred to, and they will be circulated to all members. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, during an interview on Choice Television, the Prime Minister admitted, answering a reporter in the program 21 Questions, that the document was an authentic document. And also on October 19th, the Prime Minister also admitted that he intended to make the document public until it was leaked. So I don't see any reason why that must happen. Anyhow, Mr. Speaker, these were the words of the Prime Minister himself. He said he acknowledged that the document was an authentic document, twice in the public domain. He acknowledged it in 21 Questions and speaking on a show with Timothy Polio on October the 19th, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the DSH agreement is no ordinary agreement. It involves 900 acres of land in the south of the country. Madam Speaker, any such agreement that involves such a substantial amount of land, that involves the dislocation and the relocation of people, the Bonsejour farm has to be relocated. The abattoir has to be relocated. The dump has to be relocated. There are questions on the stadium. It involves the lives of people. farmers, there is something called the equine disease-free zone. And I want everyone to go on to check Mr. Google and see what's the meaning of equine disease-free zone, Madam Speaker. This government refuses to explain to people how the equine disease-free zone will affect the farmers in the area. There is no special law for the government of St. Lucia. The equine disease-free zone is an international law. If the government intends to build thoroughbred horses, as they say, and to give people jobs to clean them, you have to ensure that the equine disease-free zone is followed, because these thoroughbred horses will not be housed in St. Lucia if there is no equine disease-free zone. There are serious issues, Madam Speaker, as they relate to this DSH program, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this government wants to pretend that we are against investment. How can we be against investment? We, in between 2006 and 2011, there were the most investments in terms of hotels in the history of St. Lucia. Many hotels were built during that period. That was the greatest number of hotel rooms built in the country between 2006 and 2011. Between 2000, sorry. Between during that period, Madam Speaker, when we were in government, that was the most hotel rooms ever built in the country. Many hotels, I can mention, I can name them, Madam Speaker. So we are not against investment, but we are saying it cannot be investment at all costs. You cannot give up 900 acres of land to one man for development. You can't. Why can't you develop it in sections? But you say the only thing you've approved is the racetrack. But as you've only approved the racetrack, but you've given up the other 900 acres. Why do you have to give up the other 900 acres if you've only approved the racetrack? That can't be right, Madam Speaker. It cannot be right, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, an agreement has been signed. The agreement has been signed. The Prime Minister hasn't said that is not the agreement. And there are many aspects of that agreement that we are concerned. We are concerned, Madam Speaker. I will start with the CIP part of that agreement, Madam Speaker. This agreement, the government agrees to amend the CIP regulation to include investment in a mixed-use tourism enterprise for real estate development, recreation, entertainment, etc., inclusive of thoroughbred purchases. So you can buy a horse and get a passport. It says, Madam Speaker, to amend the CIP legislation with respect to the removal of any limitation on the number of applications that can be received. For the promotion of the project, the government shall use its best endeavor to reduce the processing time for CIP applications. In any event, the anticipated post-approval processing time for the issuance of a certificate of citizenship would be approximately 5 weeks. But in the budget speech, the Prime Minister said that he was strengthening due diligence. But he signs an agreement that says he is reducing the time to 5 weeks. These are the concerns that we have with the project, Madam Speaker. We have other concerns on the escrow account, Madam Speaker. The master developer shall open a new bank account in his own name with a duly licensed international banking institution, not a bank in St. Lucia. He will take money from the sale of our passports and put it in an international banking institution outside of St. Lucia. It stipulates, it doesn't say an international banking institution, so you could say you could use the Bank of Nova Scotia. It stipulates outside of St. Lucia and shall designate such bank account as the escrow account. The monies received for investment in the project from CIP participants shall be deposited in this account and used in accordance with clause 7.2. And that is the investor that the Prime Minister says is so renowned and he has so much money. Listen to what 7.2 says. It says, the master developer shall use the monies in the escrow account to satisfy any project-related fees, costs, and other liabilities, including, without limitation, to monies in relation to planning and engineering matters, monies in relation to construction matters, monies in relation to architectural matters, consultancy fees, statutory fees charged in relation to any submissions for planning and similar approvals, fees in relation to obtaining or maintaining any license in respect or in connection with the project, monies in relation to commissions payable to marketing agents appointed pursuant to the CIP, monies related to overhead expenditures and profits of the project, monies in relation to the construction of the racecourse and related equine facilities, monies from the sale of our passports, monies in relation to construction of the racecourse. So to build the racecourse, you sell our passports to build the racecourse. Monies in relation to the construction of tourism and hospitality-related facilities. Monies in relation to construction of infrastructure, institutions, such as a school, place of worship, museum, and other public facilities within the project. Monies related to the training and education of equine staffing, train people to clean the horses. That's our passport money, Madam Speaker. Any other project costs. And that money is kept out of the country, you know. It's not money that you put on the bank in St. Lucia, you know. The developer stipulates and the government agrees that you must keep that money out of the country. Further, Madam Speaker, further. Following the completion, any funds remaining in the escrow account shall belong to the master developer, and the withdrawal process set out in this clause shall no longer apply. So he collect all the change. It's his. Madam Speaker, that is what the Prime Minister doesn't want us to discuss. That's what he doesn't want us to speak about. Madam Speaker, how could an investment, how could you approve an investment? Never before, Madam Speaker, in the history of St. Lucia, that there's ever been such an investment, such provisions of any investment in this country, Madam Speaker. And listen to what is even more dangerous. Incentives and buyback. If within 24 months of the launch, fewer than 200 investors have invested in the project, the master developer, having diligently marketed the project, and the government has implemented incentives and or benefits pursuant to clause 10.2, the master developer may give written notice to the government to terminate this agreement and require the government to purchase all or any part of the land at the price purchased, the buyback notice. The provisions of this agreement, save for the buyback clause and any other clause contain arrangements between the master developer and his financiers, which shall survive, shall terminate immediately upon receipt by the government of the buyback notice. That is, why can't we? This is what investment is. That is what investment, that's what you have to do. Whereas I'm sure, Madam Speaker, I'm sure, the same way you profess to be building 5 hotels in a month. If there wasn't some indecent haste to get this project going, some indecent haste, we could have sat, and if the investor is so above board as we say, and we love him, he could have sat and said, listen to me, let us speak about developing this area in parcels. I don't need you to tie up all your land for me to start to do a race course. Give me the land for the race course. When the race course is over, we will do the land for the hotel, etc. But you must tie all. You must commit all, and then you say that it is only the race course you have approved, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, it's even more serious. We speak about employment, Madam Speaker. We say it will create so many jobs. But listen to what we speak about the master developer and contractors. The government warrants, represents, and undertakes that the master developer shall be permitted, without being required to obtain further approvals, licenses, or consents, to engage and to terminate any contracts of subcontractors, suppliers, or specialists that the master developer selects in its absolute discretion, regardless of the jurisdiction of the relevant contractor, subcontractor, supplier, or other specialist, on such terms as the master developer determines. The master developer shall be permitted to structure its agreements or arrangements with any contractors or subcontractors, suppliers, or other specialists.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker, 34A, the member is speaking as if this is the authentic document. I think the record should reflect from the alleged document rather than presenting it as the authentic document, which he has not been able to verify that it's the authentic document.
Yes. The document referred to, I started off by saying that there has been nothing to prove the veracity or the authenticity of the document. An honorable leader of the opposition, the point is taken that you will refer to the alleged agreement.
The alleged document that has not been denied by the Prime Minister, and that has not been denied by the Prime Minister in two public appearances. Mr. Madam Speaker, the alleged document. The government of St. Lucia agrees to waive and agrees to produce the waiver of statutory work permit fees and personal income tax for personal and master developer domiciled in St. Lucia for the duration of the project, Madam Speaker. So all the jobs that you're speaking of is very possible, and there's nothing to stop the contractor from bringing all his workers, or the majority of his workers, from China. And we have history to follow that, Madam Speaker. The Grand Bahama in the Bahamas, that hotel, when it was built, Madam Speaker, there were problems, Madam Speaker, because too many foreigners were working on the project. So there's nothing in that agreement that says that you cannot bring a number of foreigners to work on that project, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, this agreement is a bad agreement. It's a bad agreement, Madam Speaker, because it does not serve. There is no equality in this agreement. It is too one-sided. The winner, the investor takes all. Why, Madam Speaker? Because we profess that we want to have a few jobs, Madam Speaker. Of course, we need employment. But you can't sell your soul you can't sell your soul for a few jobs. Where's your pride? Where's your patrimony? Where's your love for country? Where's your nationalism? How can you bend? How can you bend? How can you can submit so much for a few jobs, Madam Speaker? You have agreed already to take the taxpayers' money and to pay people to open artificial intelligence centers in St. Lucia. You do it, Madam Speaker, you must take the people in St. Lucia, take them in your confidence. Don't behave as if we have to sell our souls for a few jobs. We should not sell our souls for a few jobs. We should be a country of pride. Not because somebody comes in and says they want to give a few jobs, we have to sell everything. We have to give them everything. Look at the incentives that the government gives. Unheard of. Honourable Madam Speaker. So this DSH agreement, and my colleagues are going to deal with it more in greater detail, Madam Speaker, because this DSH agreement is a bad agreement. We're saying to the Prime Minister, let good sense prevail. Let good sense prevail. And any investor would not want to be involved in a country where there is so much turmoil about an investment. The investment, we're supposed to want investment. We're supposed to encourage investment. There's not supposed to be so much conflict and so many problems about an investor. And to make it worse, the Prime Minister refuses to take the people of the country in his confidence, to take the Parliament in his confidence, and discuss the agreement in his honorable house. Follow John Compton, Sir John Compton, follow him when he discussed the Hess agreement in the honorable house. But, Madam Speaker, it is this idea of we in control, we run things, we can do whatever we want, we'll make you cry, we'll make you cry. It is that, you know, Mr. It is in the DNA of this government, this aura of vindictiveness, Madam Speaker. That is why even the simplest things, Madam Speaker, they do not want to understand.
Madam Speaker, on a point of order, 35-5. Madam Speaker, I've sat here for over an hour listening to the Leader of the Opposition impute improper motive to members in this House. And he has just done it again by saying that we are vindictive, that we are victimizing people and so on. He has repeated that several times during his presentation. Madam Speaker, that is a case of imputing improper motive to members.
But you're doing it. You're victimizing people. This is the improper motive.
The order is that the member has risen on a point of order, yes, and he's explained what it is. And the constant reference to other members being vindictive, and what's the phrase, vindictive and victimizing. Victimization and vindictiveness, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, without more, if you cannot substantiate your allegations, please refrain from making a reference to members opposite being vindictive and victimizing and okay?
Madam Speaker, if saying that 90% of the people can lose their jobs because they are supporters of their party is not being vindictive and victimizing, I want to know what is. But, Madam Speaker, this is my opinion, Madam Speaker. This is my opinion, and in my opinion, Madam Speaker, the government is vindictive and victimized me, in my opinion. And in my opinion, there is evidence to substantiate that fact, Madam Speaker, in my opinion.
Okay, the reference to your opinion now is okay, sir, because you're now making it clear that it is your opinion. Continue.
Madam Speaker, I rise once again on a point of order. I want to cite 35-5, which clearly states that a member cannot impute improper motives to other members. And that is exactly what has been done repeatedly throughout the presentation of the Leader of the Opposition. And Madam Speaker, I beg your indulgence to ask the Leader of the Opposition to cease and desist.
That's your interpretation of 35-5. That's your interpretation.
Madam Speaker, the last time I got orders was from my father and he's dead. Madam Speaker?
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Sorry.
May I please respond? There is something quite different from saying, I just explained, Honorable Member from Grosley, that Honorable Member, I will address you, Honorable Member for Grosley. The member, rightly so, I have asked him that he refute from making the comments unless he can prove. He has now changed it to say that it is in his opinion. Now, one can opine. It is his opinion. you may not agree with it, but he's now said that it is his opinion. And whether or not you agree to it, it is opinion. Whether it is reasonably held or not, it is his opinion. And I am asking the honorable member again, when he is making reference to such terms, he has to indicate that it is his opinion. Please proceed, Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, I just wanted to seek clarification. So based on what you have said, I just want to understand you clearly. So based on my opinion, I am free to impute improper motives. Is that what it is?
There is something quite, I will address it generally. There is a distinction to be made between saying now that, whilst I understand you, Honorable Member for Grosley, that the repetition of it constantly, and you have stood on a point of order now to bring it up, because it is the role of members to stand on points of order as you have done. Whilst it is your opinion, whilst you've said that, it is different now to say that the member, it is different when the member says he is of the opinion. And I think that I have made myself clear when I said it is his opinion. Now, and he's saying in his opinion. We may not agree with the opinion. In the same manner, you may say it is your opinion that he's imputing improper motives. But once he clarifies it to say that is his opinion, we cannot go back and forth on the matter because it is his opinion. You may not agree with it, and you can take him on later on it that his opinion is wrong in your opinion. We will continue.
They're in control. They run things. So, Madam Speaker, all I'm saying, Madam Speaker, is that this DSH agreement is bad for St. Lucia. It's bad. The DSH agreement, the Desert Star Holding Project, Pearl of the Caribbean, as stated in the Prime Minister in page 19 and page 20 of his budget address. The Desert Star Holding Project, Pearl of the Caribbean, as stated by the Prime Minister in page 19 and 20 of his budget address, to my mind, is bad for St. Lucia. It needs to be renegotiated. It puts too much, it doesn't give the investor any sort of risk. He takes absolutely no risk. What it does is that it puts the lives and livelihoods of many people in jeopardy. We haven't fully said to the people of St. Lucia the implications of the equine disease-free zone. We haven't said clearly to the people of St. Lucia what is happening to Sandy Beach. We haven't said clearly to the people of St. Lucia what is happening to the Bossejou agricultural farm.
Honorable Member, you now have 15 minutes within which to complete your presentation.
So, Madam Speaker, to my mind, Madam Speaker, this Desert Star Holdings project, as envisaged by the Prime Minister, is a bad agreement and needs to be renegotiated for the benefit of the people of St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, the question of debt, Madam Speaker. And, you know, the Prime Minister gives the impression that the government of the Labour Party will like the debt. Several times, the Minister of Finance, when he was Minister of Finance, has come to this honorable house and the past Minister of Finance and said that debt is too high. We've all agreed that the debt to the GDP ratio is too high and we need to do something to reduce it. The last time I was here, I heard somebody say that there was a rollback of debt, and instead of borrowing, some mix-up story about a rollback of debt. Which government does not roll back debt? Which government, which Minister of Finance doesn't ask for a rollback of that instrument, Madam Speaker? Which Minister of Finance? Because the fact is that the debt to the GDP ratio is too high. But, Madam Speaker, there are several reasons why that happens, Madam Speaker. In seeking finance on the bond market, what happens in the other countries implies, and it has implications for St. Lucia. There were several other Caribbean countries who had problems with their debt and problems with their bonds. So investor confidence in these bonds, were low. So that affected St. Lucia. But, Madam Speaker, when these islands went into IMF program, and the Prime Minister makes the point about countries growing, Madam Speaker, when you are under the discipline of an IMF program, you cannot run the fiscal deficit that this Prime Minister is running for the country. You can't run it because the IMF asks you to control your expenditure. The IMF puts you under fiscal discipline. So if you're on an IMF program, a fiscal deficit of $220 million could not exist. So that is why these countries, and plus the fact, Madam Speaker, that even when it happens, these countries suffer the pain of the adjustment process. When you suffer the pain of adjustment, you have to grow because you suffer the pain of adjustment. So to make believe that St. Lucia isn't growing because of bad policies of the Labour Party is not right. It's not right, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, in the debt, you must remember that we borrowed to pay back the Black Bay lands. We borrowed to pay back the Dyer Mall. We borrowed to pay back the Ritz-Carlton lands. We borrowed to pay that back, Madam Speaker. We also borrowed to settle the lands, the debts of SLBGA and the debts of Wasco. We borrowed for that. We borrowed to build 5 secondary schools. We borrowed to build Bordelais. We borrowed to build police stations and fire stations. We borrowed to build Beauséjour. We borrowed to build the West Coast Road. We borrowed for that, Madam Speaker, because you must understand, in 1997, when it came into government, the country was going to school half day. There was a shift system in the schools. There was a shift system in both the primary schools and the secondary schools. So we had to borrow to build the secondary schools so you could have universal secondary education, which you criticize. We had to borrow for it because there was a shift system, because there was a shift system happening in these schools, Madam Speaker. So we had to borrow for it. So we are not proud of the debt. So don't play the blame game when it comes to debt. Stop playing it. The debt is unsustainable, and we need to find ways and means of reducing that debt. And we all agree to that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, manufacturing. The Prime Minister says there's been an increase in manufacturing. And I applaud the manufacturers. I applaud the manufacturers, Madam Speaker. But in this honorable house, a member came into this honorable house and he defamed a major manufacturer in this country. He said all kinds of things about him because we gave him incentives, because he perceived that this manufacturer was a supporter of the government at the time. That is the environment under which we operated, Madam Speaker. But the manufacturing sector is doing very well, Madam Speaker. But the manufacturing sector will also be affected by the increase in the price of gasoline. The manufacturing sector will be affected by the increase on the price of gasoline. So you see, the increase in the price of gasoline or fuel will also affect the manufacturing sector. And these are the repercussions of an increase in the price of fuel. It affects every aspect of life in the society, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, agriculture. You heard many times the government did nothing for agriculture, nothing. But if you go to the Prime Minister's budget address and the estimates, you will see that the production of agriculture increased. You will see that the returns from agriculture increased, Madam Speaker. You will see that. But you get the impression from the government that the Labour Party did nothing for agriculture, nothing. that agriculture was, it needed to take some, and when the return of a particular minister comes back, agriculture will be revived because it was dead. We, Black Sikatoka, man speaker, this minister, man speaker, will go on record as being one of the best ministers of agriculture ever in the history of St. Lucia. And Madam Speaker, we sit here and we talk about imputing improper motives, Madam Speaker. This minister, this former minister of youth, we came here and we imputed several things about his character. Several things about his character. We danced and right now, and we danced and we played about it. It was implying certain things about his character and the national lottery funds, Madam Speaker. Several things. And you talk about imputing improper motives, Madam Speaker. Wait, when you start to speak, you'll see about imputing improper motives. Each one of you, your job is to impute improper motives. That's what you do all the time. But, Madam Speaker, this Minister of Youth Development, Madam Speaker, has made his mark in the Ministry of Youth Development. This minister has, Madam Speaker, this minister has produced for the young people of St. Lucia, and his contribution to youth and sports, Madam Speaker, will go down as one of the best contributions ever done in the Ministry of Sports. And we have full confidence in the ability and the integrity of member for Delray North, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, my constituency of Castries East, we expect to be victimized. We expect to be victimized. They expect that we will not, the parliamentary rep will be marginalized. We expect the parliamentary rep not to be given anything. We expect that. But the people of Castries East, they are resilient people. They understand what happens when we're in opposition. We were in opposition before, and the same thing happened. It's as if it's the same template, exactly the same template. It's been played over. The people of Castries understand that. They know that. They are expecting it, and they're going to live with it. And when the time comes, they will do what they have to do, as they've always done. So, Madam Speaker, all of us in this House, we suffer from the same issue. Our seats are marginalized. People who have lost elections are given resources. People who have lost elections are sent on tours with other people. I want to make one point, Mr. Speaker. Some people want to give that impression that when they were in opposition, the government did nothing to them. There are letters on the record where the Ministry of Infrastructure, when I was minister, I wrote certain members of the opposition to ask them to, certain members of the opposition, to ask them for things for the constituency. And they refused to respond. They never responded. And now they sit in the Honorable House and say how they were victimized, Madam Speaker. You understand? But you know, the strange thing with lying is you must continue to lie all the time. That's the strange thing with lying, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, Madam Speaker, this budget, Madam Speaker, is a budget of hopes. It's a budget of dreams. It's a budget that speaks to 5 hotels. It's a budget that speaks to the changing of view thoughts. It's a budget that speaks to all kinds of plans. It's not rooted in the consciousness of the people of St. Lucia. It's not a budget that states it has confidence in the ability of the people. It's not a budget that says the people shall work and develop the country. It depends too much on people from outside. We love foreign investment. We want foreign investment. But it cannot be, you cannot hang all your hopes and aspirations on foreign investment. This budget speaks nothing about the local indigenous entrepreneur. It speaks nothing about the small hotelier. It speaks nothing about the small businessman. It speaks nothing about small and medium-sized enterprises. I know that the Minister of Commerce wants to do something about the small and the SMEs. But this budget doesn't speak directly to anything for the small and medium-sized enterprises, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's a lack of clarity in the proposals of this budget. This budget does not say in any serious way what the government intends to do on the serious issues that confront the economy. It says all the time that you will hate later. On all the pages of the budget, Madam Speaker, what the government speaks to in the serious points is that you will hear from us later. You'll hear about personal income tax later. You'll hear
One
from
more
us
minute,
incentives
Honorable
later.
Leader of the Opposition. 1 more minute.
So, Madam Speaker, it is my opinion that this budget will not meet the expectations that the Prime Minister expects it to, Madam Speaker. And if we do not change course, we will have to enter into a structural adjustment program with the IMF to reduce the unsustainable deficits that this budget implies. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Prime Minister, Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, I'm going to ask that we can be adjourned for dinner for 1 hour. Suspend the House for 1 hour until 8:30.
Honorable members, the question is that this House do stand suspended until 8:30 in the evening. I now put the question. As many are as of that opinion, say aye. As many are as of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. This House is suspended until 8:30.
I would like to or rather allow to talk to all of you.
We are all here to